Handheld gaming PCs have finally come into their own, making portable PC gaming a much more convenient and appealing possibility. So far, we've looked at the Steam Deck and the Ayaneo Next, but while both offer impressive gaming performance, they're bulky and can be harder to travel with than Nintendo's smaller Switch handheld. That all changes with the Ayaneo Air, which is all about portability. With a design that's only a hair larger than the Nintendo Switch Lite, it's able to slide into a bag with ease, keeping you game ready wherever you may go. Starting at $499, it's also the cheapest Ayaneo to date. We were sent the standard Ayaneo Air and higher powered Air Pro, and though their small size limits performance somewhat, they're absolutely worth a closer look. From the boxy form of the original Ayaneo, or the Switch on steroids that was the Ayaneo Next, the Air is altogether more refined. The design is all about being thin and light, gentle contours instead of hard angles, and a look that takes more than a little inspiration from the Switch Lite. It's a gaming PC you can carry in your pocket, and that's not something you can say about most of its competitors. Relative to its small size, it packs some impressive specs. The Air is available in 3 different versions that scale up in price and performance. The entry-level Air Lite features the most basic configuration with a Ryzen 5 5560 processor, 8 GB of DDR4 memory, and 128 GB of built-in NVMe storage for $499. The standard edition bumps the memory up to 16 GB and gives you built-in storage options up to 512 GB for $599. Cranking it all the way up to the Pro model nets you even more options, including up to 32 GB of memory and 2 TB fast SSD storage, as well as 10 extra watt hours on the battery, up to 38 milliwatt hours. The Pro model also offers you the option of upgrading to the faster Ryzen 7 5825U processor for improved gaming performance and a boost to 8 cores and 16 threads. Fully speccing out the Air Pro doesn't come cheap, however, and will set you back $1,249, or approximately 2 512 GB Steam Decks. What is especially surprising about this array of options is that even fully kitted out, the Air Pro is nearly identical in size to the Air and Air Lite. In fact, the only difference is that the Pro is 3.6 millimeters thicker to accommodate its more powerful CPU. Compare that to the Ayaneo Next, which dwarfs the Air Pro, despite having less powerful hardware and only being a few months older. That small size has a few important trade-offs, however, which we'll get to soon. But being tiny isn't the only thing the Air has going for it. The screen has also received a facelift, shrinking to 5.5 inches to fit the new design, and bumping the number of pixels to 1080p as opposed to the Next's 800p resolution. Aya also has upgraded the panel from the usual IPS to a gorgeous, color-rich AMOLED display. Blacks are darker than they've ever been, which makes the screen's vivid colors and enhanced dynamic range just boom, pop. The screen also supports 5-point touch, so you can tap, click, and drag in games and when using it as a normal PC. If you've seen the Nintendo Switch OLED, you already know how nice this type of screen can be, and the Air lacks nothing next to its console counterpart. The device features all of the traditional gamepad inputs, as well as a pair of shortcut buttons below the left joystick to show the desktop and launch the configuration software. There are also 2 customizable shoulder buttons alongside the bumpers that remember tap and hold commands. The joysticks and triggers both use Aya's improved Hall effect sensors, which use magnetism, how do they work, instead of mechanical dials to track your inputs. The inputs feel fantastic to use, and as a side bonus, the limited mechanical contact makes the traditional causes of joystick drift impossible. The triggers are equally impressive, with impeccable smoothness and a surprisingly deep range of motion for the console's size. The other face buttons use membrane switches like other controllers, but they're tactile and really well done. The D-pad in particular is remarkable in its crispness and accuracy. Around the back, you'll find your grips and a large vent to exhaust the heat from your CPU. The device gets hot during normal use, so if you block the vent, performance will suffer. Thankfully, those high temps stay mostly centered and don't transfer into the grips very much. Speaking of the grips, Aya has nailed the ergonomics here. Holding it naturally lines your fingers up with the triggers and controls. It feels natural in the same way the Switch Lite does. The speakers, on the other hand, not great. The sound is thin and tinny, and it doesn't get very loud. They'll work in a pinch, but you're definitely going to want to connect a pair of headphones or earbuds for any gaming or movie watching you plan on doing. The Air is customized using the Aya Space app. It comes pre-installed and configured so you can begin using the device right away. It's not as polished as Steam OS, but it does give you access to all of your games and system configuration options, and is noticeably improved from even a few months ago when we tested it with the Ayaneo Next. The Aya Space can be used in two forms, the full-fledged launcher or as a pop-up panel to make quick settings changes. The settings panel can be called up at any time by tapping the Aya button. There you can adjust the console's TDP and fan modes, change the resolution, brightness, and volume, and access a set of customizable quick commands for functions like enabling FSR, bringing up the on-screen keyboard, or backing out of the menus with the escape key. By holding the Aya button, you can bring up the full software suite. From the Home and Games tabs, you can one-tap launch any games or apps installed on your system. The Assistant tab allows you to customize button shortcuts and calibrate the controls. It works very well overall, but there's a level of quirkiness here that shows there is still room to grow. Portability doesn't mean much if a device struggles to deliver playable frame rates when you go to actually play something on it. And considering that even the cheapest Ayaneo Air costs as much as a PlayStation 5 and $100 more than the lowest tier Steam Deck, reasonable to have high expectations. As anyone who's used a Steam Deck or other handheld gaming PC already knows, describing expected performance can be a little tricky. There are lots of ways to tweak performance and visual fidelity that need to be balanced with battery life. In terms of sheer horsepower, both Ayaneo Air models lag behind the Ayaneo Next and the Steam Deck. This is no surprise, as their slim size limits the maximum power available to the CPU. Performance expectations on a device this much smaller are expectedly less. Like all handheld gaming PCs, it's important to really consider what they're designed for and capable of. Throughout its campaign and marketing, Aya has really emphasized that the hardware inside the standard Air is best suited for indie games. Sure, you'll be able to play major games at 30 FPS using low settings most of the time, but it's in those less demanding indies where you're going to really find its value. We lost hours to Rogue Legacy 2 and replaying Super Meat Boy, Hard West, and Hotline Miami. If you don't want to spend extra for the higher powered chip in the Air Pro, you can bump the TDP all the way to 15 watts and turn on AMD's FSR upscaling and push those more demanding games within reach. It's a stretch getting those to run at much more than 40 FPS, but they're certainly playable, and that is a feat on a device as thin and light as this. The Air Pro is much more powerful. Our review sample included the Ryzen 7 chip and 32 gigabytes of DDR4 memory, making heavyweight games much more playable. Not at ultra settings, of course, but dropping to low or medium and 720p resolution turns that on its head. Doom Eternal held steady at 45 to 50 FPS. Red Dead Redemption 2, God of War, and Spider-Man Remastered were all playable at 30 to 40 FPS. We were even able to push Spider-Man up to medium settings and lock it at a stable 30 frames per second with the help of FSR 2.0. The Achilles heel for both versions is battery life. The standard Air features a 28 watt-hour battery, while the Pro version bumps that up to 38 watt-hours. In real-world terms, on the balanced TDP setting, the Air will last about 2 hours, while the Air Pro will net you 3. For being so portable in every other way, it's disappointing to have to carry a charger or bulky battery pack with you, but it's part of the trade-off for such a thin and light design. The big question in a post-Steam Deck world is whether or not the Ayaneo Air is worth paying extra for. For sheer performance, the answer is no. The Steam Deck holds the crown on performance per dollar and isn't likely to lose it anytime soon, but there are reasons you might want to choose the Air over the Deck that range beyond its more pocketable size. For starters, compatibility with the Ayaneo, it just isn't an issue here. If a game runs on Windows, it will run on the Air. There is no compatibility layer to translate a Windows game into a Linux SteamOS game. It just works. That same quality also makes Ayaneo a viable option to use as your daily computer for everything else. A simple docking station will allow it to connect to a normal monitor and peripherals. While neither is as powerful as the Ayaneo Next or Steam Deck, Aya bet big on the Air and Air Pro's thin and light design, and that bet pays off. Both are smaller, easier to carry, and feel more like you're playing on a real handheld instead of a shrunk down PC. They are the Nintendo Switch Lites of the handheld PC world and feel really great to play on. In comparison, the Steam Deck feels like a brick, but the trade-offs the Ayaneo Air demand won't make sense for everyone. You're paying as much or more than a Steam Deck and will see lower FPS overall. The Air and Air Pro are quieter and compatible with the entire Steam library, which are major benefits, but the real deciding factor is how much you value its small size. If all you want is performance, the Steam Deck is the safer buy. But for a handheld PC gaming experience that truly feels like a handheld, the Air is a wonderful balance of great design and easy playability. What do you think? Is the Ayaneo Air a suitable replacement for the Steam Deck? Talk to us in the comments below. And don't forget to check out our review of the Ayaneo Next and the Steam Deck.